Okay. Did it give you guys a notification on recording?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, pause recording, stop recording. Okay. Perfect. Just want to make sure all of our okay. This presentation is on the critical race theory, final group presentation, group 11. For the agenda and outline, our presentation will follow these topics. For critical race theory, that will be presented by Lachelle and Caitlin. Against critical race theory will be presented by Stephanie and Jenna. Comparing opposing sides by Manel. And organizations for critical race theory by Lachelle. This presentation consists of readings from independent research materials, online sources, and course materials. We will use the allotted time to discuss the topic of critical race theory and why it is beneficial to teach this topic in school, as well as the opposing view. Next will be just a quick video summarizing our topic.
Of critical race theory. The whole purpose of critical race theory is to provide Americans with a way to understand the legacy of racism, even though those stories sometimes hurt.
It's anti-American training that vilifies white people and demands they apologize.
The best learning for students about social studies and about our democracy and our country is the learning where students can really grapple with the issues and really come to a deeper understanding of how our past informs our present.
All of this revisionist, woke curriculum, you are not going to do this to our children.
Teachers across the country are caught in the middle of the latest flashpoint in America's culture war, critical race theory. So what exactly is it? And why is there a push to ban it in schools?
Critical race theory is a body of ideas and a set of approaches to understanding history and the present of American society that looks at the ways in which racial unfairness have been woven into the fabric of our institutions.
In other words, critical race theory, or CRT for short, is a legal academic framework centered on the idea that racism is systemic. It first started
Critical race theory. What is it? My name is Lachelle Hicks, and I'm going to be arguing why I am for critical race theory. Why should we care about this topic? How critical race theory impacts students, educators, parents, and community members. Critical race theory holds that America is fundamentally racist and teaches people to view every social interaction in person in terms of race. Its inherent pursuit of anti-racism through the end of merit, objective truth, and the adoption of race-based policies. When it comes to students understanding and being taught about American history, the real events need to be incorporated. Whether it's good or bad, it needs to be known. We cannot continue to leave everything in the past and forget what has happened. Critical race theory being taught to students will help them grow a sense of accountability, not only for them, but for their ancestors as well. Them being taught about how the past influenced the future and will broaden their views of why things are and how it got to this point, along with how they can make a change. Why should we care about this topic? As a student, I can reflect on how throughout all my history classes, the only heroes were white Americans. From Civil War to World War II, they were always seen as the hero, even when they killed and hurt other races for their own profit. Only knowing part of history through school and knowing how my culture was neglected in so many ways basically made me feel like I was lied to. Or not told the truth of how America really came about. This made me question everything I was taught in history class. Knowing your cultural background and the injustices that your culture endured is important to understanding who you are as a human being. As for parents, critical race theory impacts them in a two-way street kind of way. Parents may or may not see it as something that needs to be a pressing issue in a household due to either their lack of knowledge / understanding of the situation, their own personal beliefs from what they were taught from their family, or from what they learned in school. Although critical race theory is a major shift to some of their existence, by them being aware of the truth, it will help them acknowledge why it's a must, why their children need to learn and understand both sides to their American history. By knowing that, they can become more proactive about the importance of learning how critical race theory affects them and how they should be able to decide what they do with the information for their future. When we speak on educators, we have a diverse pot of teachers. Some teachers may not agree or feel comfortable with the results of teaching critical race theory, especially if their ancestors hold a deep connection on the other side of it. Then there are some teachers who are totally for it being taught and are happy with openly discussing the events that took place with their students and hope that it will allow them to draw their own opinions and views of the situation on their own. In terms of education reform with critical race theory, we need to take into consideration how the impact of this will have a negative response, but also a positive one just the same. It is crucial that critical race theory is just not a subject that needs to be taught in law school, but also a subject in grade school curriculums. The discrimination rooted in race should be a public topic that we discuss in the eyes of equity. The idea of equality is to provide more to those who are perceived to have the greatest disadvantage, to achieve better equality of the outcome, and to compensate for the historical wrongs of discrimination and systematic racism. As far as being an advocate for critical race theory, teachers, educators, parents, and community members, they can partner with organizations that is taking a stand and advocating because it's important that our children are nurtured with all the facts, and allow them to make their own judgment.
New knowledge presented by Caitlin Yarl. How can we use the information from this class? This class has offered us the opportunity to see firsthand how important the idea behind learning about critical race theory really is. We have learned the truth about how much racism still exists in our education system and how students truly feel in regards to this. We have been given a chance to see how we can use this knowledge to better our communities and make impacts in our own lives. For those of us that are going into education, we can make changes in the curriculum that we teach. We can help our students learn the truth about our history and how it can help us reshape the future. We can strive to empower our students to find their voices, not only in their educational endeavors, but in their personal lives as well. We owe it to the next generation of students to allow them to feel truly heard. For those of us that are not going into education, we can use this knowledge to help educate those around us and give others the valuable information we have gained through the readings and videos we have been provided over the course of this semester. As a society, we can no longer afford to sit and pretend that racism no longer exists. We must do all that we can to stay educated and diligently speak out against the injustices that continue to occur across the country.
Against critical race theory. Hi, this is Jenna Kumnick, and let's take a look at those who oppose critical race theory, who they are, how many critical race theory opposers there are, and why they oppose. People who oppose critical race theory are typically those who are unable to separate themselves as individuals from society and the institutions that govern America. These opposers are predominantly conservatives. It is estimated that approximately 55% of Americans who have heard of critical race theory are against the idea. Next. There are currently 9 states that have laws banning critical race theory. These include Arizona, Idaho, Iowa, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. Next. The list of states that are considering or beginning the process of banning critical race theory include Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Maine, Mississippi, Missouri, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Next. Why are people against critical race theory? And what are the cons? Those against critical race theory feel that it labels white people as oppressors and causes them to feel guilty for our country's racist history. Opposers do not think that our children should be taught to blame themselves for America's racism. Many people against critical race theory genuinely believe that American society no longer contains prejudice and that today we are all equal. There are many who fear critical race theory will not teach children to view everyone as equal, regardless of skin color, or treat them as such. People fear children will take this knowledge and begin to think with prejudice. Some believe critical race theory was created strictly to blame white people. They feel that America's governing institutions, such as healthcare, criminal justice, and education systems, are not prejudiced in their rules, regulations, laws, and procedures. Therefore, there is no point in critical race theory. Opposers' perspective on critical race theory suggests that it will point out inequity in the minds of Americans rather than in the American systems. Next. In conclusion to the overall perspective of those who are against critical race theory, they feel that it suggests that white people are oppressors and should feel guilty for the racist history of America. They do not think America's governing systems are still racist or that children should be taught that they are. Opposers feel that critical race theory will only teach children to place blame on white people and separate us as a society even more. Next.
Lawmakers against critical race theory. Critics of the critical race theory assert that it is a anti-American discourse that villainizes white people and indoctrinates young minds. Lawmakers behind an Idaho bill said critical race theory tries to make kids feel bad. And in Tennessee, legislators accused such parties of promoting division. In a Rhode Island bill bans teaching the idea that the United States of America is fundamentally racist or sexist. Former President Donald Trump says that by teaching the critical race theory, students are being subjected to a new curriculum designed to brainwash them, and also states for decades that the American blaming left has been relentlessly pushing a vision of America that could cast our history, culture, traditions, and founding documents in the most negative possible light. He also wrote, yet in recent years, this deeply unnatural effort has progressed them from telling children that their history is evil to telling Americans that they are evil. Also, some parents are worried about their kids learning things in school that they do not have the capacity to address. Many Americans are not able to separate their individual identity as an American from the social institutions that govern us. These people perceive themselves as the system.
Comparing opposite sides. I'm Manel, and I'm talking about the two sides. First, the reasons for CRT accusing CTR opponents for twisting the real meaning of CRT, which affected what they had accomplished for racial justice and diversity. Twisting who's being instructed. CRT is only instructing in post-secondary education and law school. Reproaching people of color for talking about civil rights, systemic racism, diversity, and race. Promoting voting against educators instructing foundational US history and other subjects. Many states starting a legislation against CRT with various bills. Stopping diversity work trainings, including CRT, anti-racism, white privilege, and injustice. Starting a negative campaign with claims against CRT, non-acknowledging race and disregarding truth. For the other side, reasons against CRT, accusing CRT of educators using their leadership and control in the classroom to stereotype, shame, and mistreat students, teaching race lessons that make students feel humiliated and embarrassed, blaming students who are white for their ancestors' acts, teaching that US was founded in racism and sexism, using reverse discrimination and racial bias, racial assessment and training at their jobs, dividing US and undermining that it was founded in believing that all men are created equal, breaking the Civil Rights Act because CRT isn't a historical knowledge. For me, from the research, the quote that really stuck out to me was from Gloria Ladson-Billings, a critical race theorist, former professor and former president of the American Educational Research Association, said at the end of this ABC News article, "You know, you cannot hide this from students forever. I will have students come to the university level, and when they will begin the search for history, they were angry, right? Why didn't my parents ever tell us this? Why weren't we ever taught this?" And this is exactly how I felt. Next.
There are organizations that are raising awareness to help parents fight back against lawmakers not wanting critical race theory being taught in schools. The first organization is Parent Defending Education. Their mission statement states, Parents Defending Education is a national grassroots organization working to reclaim our schools from activists imposing harmful agendas through networking connection and coalition, building investigative reporting, litigation, and engagement on local, state, and national policies. We are fighting indoctrination in the classroom and promoting the restoration of a healthy, non-political education for our kids. They believe all children's education should be based on scholarships and facts and should nurture their development into the happy, resilient, free-thinking, educated citizens every democracy needs. Our classrooms should include rigorous instruction in history, civics, literature, math, the science, and the ideas and values that enrich our country. Another organization that's helping to fight back against critical race theory is National Education Association. Their mission statement is to advocate for education professionals and to unite our members in the nation to fulfill the promise of public education, to prepare every student to succeed in a diverse and interdependent world. NEA also believes every student in America, regardless of family income or place of residence, deserve a quality education. In pursuing this mission, NEA has determined that they will focus their energy and resources of their 3.2 million members on improving the quality of teachers, increasing student achievement, and making schools safer, better places to learn.